Yes, please begin.
Great. Okay. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Active Transportation Symposium panel on demonstration projects, short-term projects, long-term impacts. And my name is Hannah Brunelle. I am a senior planner with the Southern California Association of Governments. And I'm excited. We have some great panelists for you today with a lot to share on their experiences with demonstration projects in their communities. And before we get started, just want to go over some of the webinar features and meeting logistics for you. This session is 75 minutes in total, so we'll have about an hour for the presentations, and then we'll have a 15-minute Q&A session at the end. And all the participants are muted and your video is turned off, and this session is being recorded. If you do have a question during the session, please type it into the Q&A widget. Please do not use the chat feature unless you are looking to reach the meeting producer, if you have technical issues, things like that. And we will be sure to log all of the questions that you do type into the Q&A widget, and we'll answer them at the end. And participants can upvote questions. So if you see something in there, you really want to get it answered, please be sure to upvote it. And if you think of something later, you can always feel free to reach out to me. My contact is here, and it's also at the end of the presentation as well. And so I'm really excited to introduce some of our great panelists for you today. I'll be kicking off the presentations, sharing SCAG's Go Human program, local engagement and lasting impact. And coming up in the second is Russell Toler. He is a community advocate with the Costa Mesa Alliance for Better Streets. And rounding out the presentations is Leslie Blomquist. She is the city engineer for the city of Citrus Heights. And before we dive into the presentations, we wanted to do a couple of poll questions to help get a sense of who is joining us today. So if we can bring up the first poll question, where are you joining from today? And we'll give it about 30 seconds so everyone can participate. Alrighty, if we want to close the poll so we can take a look. All right, interesting. Okay, most folks are joining us from Southern California, then Northern California, Bay Area, and Central Valley. Great. Okay, so the second question, looking to see what type of organization you represent. And we'll leave it up for a bit longer. Okay, and if we want to close the poll, please. Great. All right. Most folks are joining us as a local agency, state agency, regional agency. All right. A lot of government folks today. Okay, great. All right. Well, yeah, thank you so much for participating. All right. And I will kick it off with the first presentation. I'll be speaking today about SCAG's Go Human program, local engagement and lasting impact. And again, my name is Hannah Brunelle, and I'm a planner with SCAG. And to give you some context about SCAG, we are the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO, for Southern California. We represent over 19 million people, 6 counties, and 191 cities in Southern California. So we have a pretty big region. And Go Human is SCAG's community engagement program. It is our active transportation, safety, and encouragement program. And it contains really 3 key areas. We have regional advertising and safety co-branding, and we look to tailor messages to really serve local agency and community need. And temporary demonstration projects through our kit of parts, which I'll speak on later in the presentation. and also educational opportunities such as workshops and webinars and local programming to really meet the needs for active transportation in local communities. And I'm excited to share a little bit about the benefits of demonstration projects. And so demonstration projects really serve multiple purposes and have many key benefits. They really are an excellent tool for community engagement. They really help to bring new voices and center equity into planning processes. They really provide a way for folks to experience some tangible on the ground pop-ups. They're really easy to participate in, they're fun and eye-catching, and they provide opportunities for community members to really experience treatments, just in their everyday lives, just walking around their neighborhoods. And it helps folks to visualize potential treatments, and this can really help local agencies refine their final designs and really prioritize community input into the final project. And residents really can, experience streets in new ways. And, this can really help foster some local champions for projects, one of which we'll be presenting on later in this panel, and also provides, really visible education to elected officials, which can become really critically important, especially when you're trying to go after funding and construct a project permanently. And so to bring these demonstration projects and help provide access to local agencies, our Go Human Kit of Parts is a really key component of our overall Go Human program. It's really a no-cost engagement resource for local agencies to demonstrate these pop-up improvements. And it's essentially a toolkit of demonstration materials and also educational signage and a survey tool really to demonstrate 5 different infrastructure treatments. So you can see on the slide here, we have a protected bike lane, we have creative crosswalks, curb extension, parklet, and the one not shown is a median refuge island. And as you can see, our kit of parts is really interesting because they're very lightweight materials. They're very easy to transport and set up. They are less burdensome than, sometimes traditional materials can be, and they're also flexible and movable. So if you want to make, a change in the field on the ground, you can kind of easily move around the materials depending what the site conditions are. And an important framing to all of our work through our Go Human program is really our agency's commitment to racial equity. And so, our agency adopted a resolution really restating our commitment to racial and social equity. And this, aligns really closely with our Go Human project. As you can see on the slides here, fatalities and serious injuries are, really disproportionately occurring in historically disinvested communities. And so there's really an urgent need to address these issues on the ground. And demonstration projects can really help to facilitate some of this work and really help to move forward some of these safety priorities, and especially in communities that are really bearing the burden of these disproportionate impacts. And so now I'm really excited to share some demonstrations in action. So Go Human recently partnered with the City of Long Beach, their Public Works Division, and their Council District 9 to really demonstrate some improvements as part of their upcoming Great Boulevard project, which is a permanent project they look to construct next year. And so we were really excited to partner with this community, and this work was really special because we were able to really do some hyper local engagement with residents in an underserved community. And through our survey efforts, we found that about 70% of folks actually traveled to the demonstration either on bike or on foot. And so we really captured that very hyper local audience. And as you can see, there was really overwhelmingly positive support for some of the treatments. And you can see some great comments that we received from folks about the treatments and the permanent project. So we were really, excited and, looking forward to seeing what that project will look like on the ground. And to give you a sense of what the demonstration projects look like, I wanted to share a quick video. And this is specific to the project we did in the city of Long Beach.
We are closing down the street and reimagining Artesia Boulevard, inviting the community to come out, reimagine, re-engage with the Artesia Boulevard corridor. I have to tell you, today wouldn't be possible without Southern California Association of Governments' Go Human campaign. It's a demonstration that features safety demonstrations and improvements relative to mobility and livability and making sure that our streets are better. Next year, you're going to see a tremendous transformation of this regional corridor.
This is a really exciting collaboration with the City of Long Beach, and it is about community engagement and community education. Whether we're talking about the bike lanes here or also high visibility crosswalk. We want to contribute to safer streets, and that's exactly what the Go Human campaign's about.
These improvements make it safer and more enjoyable to walk, bike, and roll in communities across Southern California. Activate Artesia is a great example of Go Human's mission to reduce traffic collisions in Southern California, create safer and healthier communities, and encourage people to walk and bike more.
All right, so that'll give you a little taste of what some of the demonstration projects look like. And again, it's really about kind of celebrating the local community and, engaging folks in some of the treatments that they could potentially see on their roadways. And so now I want to transition a little bit to talking about some of the projects that were recently implemented as a result of Go Human demonstration projects. And so we partnered with the city of Palm Desert. They're a mid-size community in the Coachella Valley a few years ago to do a demonstration project. And as a result of some of the really positive community feedback, the city then began taking a look at the final designs and some of the configurations of San Pablo, which is really a main thoroughfare within the community. It has connections to the Coachella Valley Link or the CV Link bikeway. So it's really kind of, a main roadway that has residential, access to commercial. And so we were really excited that the city then invested about 18 million in improvements for San Pablo Avenue. And you can see on the slide here some photos of the demonstration project and then what the corridor looks like today from this aerial view, as well as some of the creative crosswalks that they constructed. And so, really now they're referring to this as kind of the heart of the city. It features some enhanced walkways, a lane reduction to add protected bikeways, and as I mentioned, connections to commercial and also the regional bikeway network through the CV Link. And we also partnered with the city of Culver City a few years ago to demonstrate a Safe Routes to School project that actually received ATP funding. And we work with the city to demonstrate a two-way protected bike lane, some creative crosswalks you can see kind of in the theme of the local area, as well as some curb extensions. And this was really intended to serve students accessing the La Bayona Elementary School. But it also really, served residents in the local area accessing some of the commercial on Washington and Culver. And this demonstration project was really a key engagement tool for the city. It helped them to really understand some of the changes they needed to make in the final design. And we're really excited that this project is anticipated to be fully implemented this month. As you can see, there was some media coverage on it recently. So we're excited that it will also include some median refuge islands and some new street trees. And I'm also really, excited to feature the city of Riverside. We've partnered with the city on a few demonstration projects, to really help move the needle on active transportation in Riverside. We partnered on 2 demonstration projects in the last few years that received some overwhelmingly positive support from the community. We demonstrated treatments such as high visibility crosswalks and also increased pedestrian lighting. And as a result of this support, you can see that the city actually moved forward with the underpass lighting under the 91 freeway, and they branded it really to thank some of the frontline workers during the height of COVID-19. And the Go Human demonstrations also inspired other local engagements and activations in the city, as they're really working towards their public health and equity goals. And also you can see they implemented some high visibility crosswalks at one of the major intersections in the city. And from these projects and many of the other projects we've worked on through Go Human, there have been many key lessons learned, and I'll share a few of them with you today. So one of the really key lessons learned is really to put people at the center of the project. While we know demonstrations are a great tool for community engagement and are a way to celebrate the local community, it's really essential for public agencies to be transparent with community members about what the permanent improvements will look like, what the project timelines are. And it's also critically important to continue to engage with community members and follow up with them throughout all phases of the project. And it's also, important to remember that, folks should be involving local community members and compensating them for their expertise, and to try to spend time in the community that you're working with to really understand some of the local challenges and opportunities. And so while we know data is really critical to demonstration projects, and it's essential to really include those evaluation mechanisms and provide multiple ways for the public to provide feedback, we also know that data can sometimes have gaps in it, right? And sometimes those gaps are structural. So it's really important to remember, sometimes the feedback you're receiving is not always the full picture. And so to help create, a more sort of complete picture, again, it's really important to work with some trusted community partners that can help you gather some more qualitative data. And it's also really important to, provide sort of multiple ways for community members to provide input. Some folks really prefer having pen and paper to fill out a survey. Other people like the flexibility of doing, an online survey, maybe after the fact. Or some people may like to just do something as simple as sort of a text to vote, or interacting through social media. So trying to be flexible and providing as many ways as possible for people to provide input, get into conversation with staff, that's always really critical to remember and can help try to overcome some of the hurdles with data. And as many of us know, the need for funding, it really almost always exceeds what's available at a given time. And we see this really clearly through our regional active transportation program that we offer, as well as through the Go Human resources that we fund. And I think that really speaks to, it's critically important to set some priorities with the funding that you do have. And so our program has really made a commitment to prioritize historically disinvested communities and really invest our funding in places with the most need. And importantly, projects must always prioritize equity. As an example of this, on an earlier slide that you saw, you can see that crashes are disproportionately occurring in disinvested communities. 66% of the high injury network is in disadvantaged communities and communities of concern. Those are kind of the sort of official classifications that we are working with. And so, what that really means is that crashes are occurring in places of disinvestment. And so, I think this really speaks to the fact that it's critically important any interactions that the government is having with the public, and especially in, sort of those high visibility demonstration events, it's really important to take those opportunities to build trust and build some meaningful relationships, and that can help heal and repair communities. And I also would love to take this opportunity to share an exciting announcement. Go Human is really pleased to be partnering with the ATRC to pilot the Go Human Kit of Parts program statewide. And so we're really looking to partner with agencies and community-based organizations across the state to do demonstration projects. We're looking to partner really to expand and evolve our program and really kind of co-design engagements with local partners. And we anticipate to kick off this program early next year. And before I close, I just wanted to make sure to wish everybody a happy Pedestrian Safety Month and a happy Walktober. And a shout out to the awesome folks that work on our social media here at SCAG. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. My contact is here. I will also drop it into the widget so that you have it. And I will now pass it off to Russell Toler, joining us from the Costa Mesa Alliance for Better Streets. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay, thank you for that, Hannah. That's going to be tough to follow. I am not as polished. I'm coming from the perspective of a community advocate, a local agitator, boots on the ground. And let me share my screen. Okay. There we go. Okay, I think we're good. Yeah, so anyway, I think we have a good mix of panelists this morning because we have someone from a local agency, someone from SCAG, and then I'm kind of representing the community based organization perspective. I don't have a lot of information or data or things to take notes about. What I really just have is a story, and I'm going to share my experience with you. I've gone through. I live in Costa Mesa, and we're a city that we have a lot of potential, but the ball just isn't rolling. So we've been getting that ball rolling in terms of becoming an active transportation friendly community. So I'm going to go over the context real quick, just Costa Mesa briefly, our organization that we've had for just a couple of years, Costa Mesa Alliance for Better Streets, or CMABS. And then our demonstration project. This was Reimagine 19th. This was actually a SCAG Go Human mini grant funded project. And lastly, the aftermath, what has happened as a result of that project. So hopefully there's some nuggets of wisdom that you guys can get out of this presentation and you can find it useful. So Costa Mesa, we're known as the City of the Arts. We have big Seegers from Concert Hall, these sorts of arts. We have kind of the street grungy arts. We're known as the capital of cool. The OC Register called us this a few years ago, and it stuck. We have a cool, lively, interesting restaurant scene. We have a lot of headquarters for surf and skate industries. We do have a head start. So if you look at, this is commuting data, compared to our neighboring cities and compared to our county as a whole, we do have a lot of people already trying to walk and bike to get around. And we have good bones. As you can see, this is most of the city right here. We were laid out a lot before the war. So you can see some of that original fabric in the middle on the right there. You can see how two grids are colliding, making an interesting street grid. On either side of the shot here are kind of wild open spaces. So there is potential. It'd be hard to say that for a lot of other places that I could think of, but I've always thought Costa Mesa has potential to be to evolve into a green, urban, interesting, walkable, bikeable place. CMAPS, Costa Mesa Alliance for Better Streets. So we formed in 2019, early 2019, for a few reasons. Our city should be, as I was just saying, an active transportation hub. We do have a good layout, right? A good grid. Things aren't going to get better on their own. We had recently elected a really good council that a lot of us were excited about. And it took a while for us to realize that wasn't enough. They can't just wave a magic wand and start implementing all their hopes and dreams. So we recognized that we needed to build a base of advocates to both support the good things that some of our leaders wanted to do and to keep raising that bar, to keep that pressure on. So we had a bikeway and walkability committee that was a few years old at that point, and they're technically a subcommittee of the city council, so they're under the Brown Act, and not a lot was happening. Likewise, we had an active transportation plan, and not a lot was happening or even getting budgeted in terms of implementation. It was really kind of just sitting on the shelf. So a lot of us attending these meetings decided, well, let's form a group that can stand up to the city, that's separate from the city, but can provide that concentrated concentrated focus towards our goals. So we just started doing that. We just started inviting our friends to meetings. We would meet, we'd talk about these things, we'd print out big maps of the city and gather around and figure out where people were having trouble walking or biking, why people wouldn't get from point A to point B, why would they would opt to drive instead despite the short distances, things like that. We were all just enamored with these tactical urbanist guide that you guys all probably know about. We were looking at other cities that were establishing processes by which the community could do these sorts of placemaking, community-led demo projects. That one's Fayetteville, Arkansas. This one's Burlington, Vermont. We just ate this stuff up. We love the idea of doing this, but our city just wasn't there. Nobody knew what this was. Nobody understood the significance of it, how to use it. So it was kind of an uphill battle. So we saw the advertisement for the SCAG mini grant, Community Streets mini grant, and the description was right up our alley. They were providing the funding for exactly the sort of things we wanted to do, make walking and biking easier for more people in the city. To our surprise and to our horror, we actually we won $10,000 to be put to use. So, and we are not a professional group of people. We're kind of a ragtag group of neighbors that like to walk and bike in our city. So we met with the city staff, and the first thing to do, we had to settle on a location. We chose West 19th Street. It's there's a couple. It's a historically disinvested, disadvantaged part of town. But it's a cool corridor. It's mixed use. It's got a lot of shops and restaurants. It's got a lot of multifamily. A lot of people walking around, trying to bike around. The senior center's there. The soup kitchen's there. It's a cool spot that should be better than it is. We had to manage 3 overlapping phases just to make things easy on ourselves: outreach, design, implementation. So for outreach, a lot of what we did was just getting a friend of a friend to do stuff for us. So this was some graphic design by them. We sent this little card to a few thousand people, everybody within a quarter mile of this street, and it had a link to a survey that we collected data on. And this we had a lot of qualitative data. What's wrong with this street? What's missing from it? What specifically are the problems? And you can see these are pretty big, overwhelming numbers. Missing good or safe places to ride a bike, 74% of people said that. Speeding, careless, or aggressive drivers, 73%. So we made it real clear, just not even the project itself, but just the outreach for the project gave us some really good data that helped show the city how much of a problem everybody sees this, the conditions there. So we had to decide, after deciding where to have this project, what could we do that the city would actually entertain? That's the first filter. We wanted to affect the street itself. We weren't interested in doing just a bicycle rodeo or passing out high-vis vests or things like that. We recognized that the problem is the design of the street, and we wanted to do something to the street itself. Obviously, we wanted to improve pedestrian and bicyclist experience. This one's in italics because it's important. We wanted to get a foot in the door. We wanted to get the ball rolling in the city. We wanted the city staff and our leaders to start thinking differently about how we go about making our places better, and what the possibilities are. The fact that it can be different, and how we might take steps towards realizing those visions. So in conversation with the city and settling on specifically what sort of project we would do, we couldn't do bike lanes. You need a study. That's what we hear for a lot of these. You need county approval. You need our neighboring cities' approval. Crosswalk, same thing. You need a study. We couldn't do a lot of these things. It was just too much. Traffic circles and bulb outs. They said we could do that. And, that gave me a little cold feet because traffic circles are a little bit controversial, even the Safe Streets community. It's a little split on this, but this is what we were able to do. So we started doing it. We were in charge of just about everything. We had some key people, city manager and a couple of champions on the council that made sure that this was a community-led project, that our organization, CMAPS, was able to take the lead on this. That it wouldn't be kind of top-down, staff-led, but that we were able to do this. And so we were in charge of design, getting all the materials. We were kind of the middlemen between the companies that rent the cones and everything, and the city. Trees, bushes, the artwork, informational signage, data collection, so the survey, but also speed and volume data, collecting all that. These are the renderings we drew. And so here is what we did. This is a 1-minute video.
Costa Mesa Alliance for Better Streets is a nonprofit that is organized to try to help make Costa Mesa a better place for everyone.
So this is a week. It's volunteer labor. It's cheap material used with grant money. We'll learn a lot of things. We're going to be getting a lot of community feedback from this.
As an engineer, this approach to design is very natural for me. You know, you don't build it until you know it works, and the only way to know it works is to try it.
It's not that complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive and complicated to just calm the streets a little bit, to slow down the cars.
Especially on the west side Costa Mesa. Very prideful in our neighborhood. People love their neighbors, and we want to create an environment where we can interact more often.
Okay, so that was it. It was a week-long demonstration project with, as you can see, pop-up traffic circles, some bulb outs. We used delineators. We had a local artist come and do the design that made it real Instagrammable, right? Really fun for people to share on social media and stuff, and for the newspapers. We got some local media coverage, 2 different articles in the Daily Pilot, Above the Fold even. And the data. When my friend that was organizing this data showed this to me, I said, yeah, but it did lower speeds and everything, but what about kind of rush hour? There was a little bit of backup at 5 o'clock every afternoon. And he removed those hours, and it still did result in a significant drop in speed, and especially cut off all those outliers of the real high speeds that we had detected before the traffic circle was installed. There is a lot of red here. We got community feedback that was having the survey up the whole time was a lot of the point. But there's also a lot of green. And like I said, traffic circles are a little bit controversial. Americans, we get confused of how to use them, but 56% said they liked it. 7 were on the fence. That includes everybody, including drivers. You take drivers out of the equation, and you got what 85% are thinking that it's probably better than the 4-way stop before. Here's a picture. I was a little bit of a nervous wreck during this week because I was, you know, it's you wake up in the middle of the night and you think, oh, is somebody going to steal the cones as they're out there right now? Is a drunk going to drive through? Are we going to get sued? And a council member that lived around the corner and came and checked on it once in a while sent me this picture. And we didn't pay these kids to go out there with their cellos and their rollerblades. They just showed up out of nowhere. They just popped up, which is really cool. And this really made me feel good about this project. Things like this were happening. They say children are a good indicator species of a healthy urban environment, right? And so is live music, just spontaneous live music. And this just these kinds of things ever happening showed me that this was turning into a place that's worth caring about, a place worth being, rather than just a place to quickly scurry through and not get hit. One of our council members that really supported us on this project, she doubled down and got a mariachi band to come on the last day. And a lot of us rode our bikes or walked over to the traffic circle on the last day before it was taken down. And these guys played for about an hour, and it was 5 or 6 in the afternoon when people were on their evening walks. And you know what they did? They lingered. They saw this, and there were people on all 4 corners just kind of casually lingering, bumping into their neighbors that they don't usually bump into. And the whole intersection, probably for the first time in its history, started to feel like a place worth being, a nice, relaxing place. The cars were slowly moving through. It didn't have that stress of stop sign, honking, confusion of a 4-way stop. I'm not going to read all this, but we had a lot to do. This was overwhelming. This was quite a storm of a project that we got through, but we had to do it. Through the whole thing, this was my goal: maintain a good relationship with the city. We had a lot of reasons to just never want to talk to each other or work with each other. A lot of reasons for everybody to get mad at each other and fight. Not everything went right. It was pretty stressful, but we came out the other end with a good relationship with the city, and that was the whole point for me. What the project paved the way for, real quick, I'm wrapping up here. I'm just going to go through a couple of projects. These are not all the active transportation projects in the city. These are the projects that are a direct result of this demonstration project that I'm talking about today. 19th Street, bike lanes. So we just had this meeting the other day. This was what sparked interest and really started moving this ball forward of getting 19th Street fixed and giving people a place to ride bikes. Right now, there's signs everywhere that say no biking on the sidewalk. Nobody in their right mind would ride in the street. So the city's doing something about that now. That's real cool. Concerts in the Park is an annual event that we have, and the city did this. The city has never done a pop-up bike lane like this. SCAG Go Human came out in 2018, and they helped us do one on a different street that is now permanent as of this month. But the city just did this on their own. They made this wide protected bike lane for about a mile, and the park where the concerts were is at a midpoint. And the city did this, and it was awesome. And city staff is starting to think about this approach to things. Let's just do it and see what happens. Let's see how it works, and if it doesn't work, we can pull it out. And this is right next to a high school too, so really can connect a lot of people. That's what it looked like. Delineators everywhere. These are going up all over the city. They explained it to me. Staff explained it to me. They said, well, If it doesn't work, we can remove it. If we need to tweak it, we can tweak it. We're going to use inexpensive materials. And I said, that's great idea. That's cool. We support you in that. So these are getting a lot of good feedback in different parts across the town. And more traffic circles. The city is doing this on their own. Our organization, the Alliance for Better Streets, had nothing to do with this, but the city's doing it and trying to address speeding concerns. They allowed us to help with where we can as an organization, and we got to do kind of the community outreach component of this and the other projects I was just talking about. So maybe this is kind of basic. This is real fundamental. We all get this, but this is the perspective I'm bringing to the table. Paramount to progress is a healthy and productive relationship with the city. You can maintain a good relationship and keep a fire lit under them. So this is absolutely key. I work as a planner in the private sector. I'm a planning commissioner, but the progress is made at the community, boots on the ground, community advocacy, getting people connected, focused, and concentrated on specific efforts like this, and to keep raising the bar with the city and to maintain a good relationship with them at the same time. Also, demonstration projects are the way for hesitant cities to experiment with an active transportation proposals in low-risk ways. And it's the only way to get the community to think outside the box. So we're super excited that SCAG Go Human was able to fund us with that project, and it was a good project overall. And although it was messy, it was very messy and stressful, but we did it. We got through the other side, and now we're beginning to see the long-term fruit of what that project enabled us to see. So that is my presentation, and I look forward to Q&A after this, but I'm going to hand it off to Leslie, who is with the City of Citrus Heights. Leslie?
Thanks, Russell. So good morning, everyone. I'm Leslie Blomquist. I'm the city engineer for the City of Citrus Heights, and I'm here to talk about a demonstration project that was implemented by the city on Old Auburn Road back in October of 2019. The demonstration project was part of a larger plan development. So I'll cover the history of the corridor and plan development, the 1 week long demonstration project, and the outcome of these two items. But first, a bit about Citrus Heights. Citrus Heights is a suburban city located within Sacramento County, just northeast of the city of Sacramento. We have a population of approximately 88,500 people, and our community is completely built out. The median age is approximately 37.5 years, and the median household income is about $57,000. And although the 38 years is the median age, we actually have a very diverse community of younger families, as well as those that have lived here for quite some time. And a little about the corridor of Old Auburn Road. The roadway itself has a posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour, but the 85th percentile speed has consistently been measured at 39 miles per hour. This collector roadway carries 27,000 vehicles per day and travels diagonally through the city from the center of town, connecting to the northeast corner. We've historically heard from residents and commuters alike regarding traffic safety concerns on the roadway, specifically regarding excessive speeds, sight distance challenges created by the diagonal alignment of the roadway, as well as regarding inconsistent non-motorized facilities along the corridor. Over the most recent 5 years that we had data for at the time, there were 139 reported collisions along the corridor, including several involving bicyclists and pedestrians, 2 of which were fatalities, and 3 resulted in severe injuries. Just over half the crashes were rear end, and over a third were due to unsafe speeds. Typically, rear end collisions are a result of unsafe speed and sight distance limitations. So review of this data confirmed what we had already been hearing from the residents and highlighted some of the main issues for us to concentrate on during our plan analysis. One particular location that we spent a significant amount of time reviewing was a signalized intersection with repeated crashes into some adjacent planter boxes. This is a T intersection, and as you can see on the aerial view on the right, the two roadways meet at a less than 90-degree angle, adding to the challenge of vehicles making that northbound left turn, particularly during nighttime and rainy conditions. In fact, the intersection had received local publicity due to complaints and signs that the neighbors would install after each hit of the planter boxes. This picture on the screen now is of a sign the adjacent property owner placed after the 26th time the planter had been hit. The planter boxes had become somewhat of a neighborhood celebrity, so to say. The planters were originally installed as a pseudo crash cushion to absorb impact, prevent cars from damaging or entering the adjacent properties, and given that they are relatively low cost and quick to repair. However, although the planter boxes did what they were designed to do, minimizing severity of crashes and damage to the adjacent private properties, they didn't fix the underlying problem, which was causing the off-the-road crashes to begin with. We applied several times for Highway Safety Improvement Program and Office of Traffic Safety grants to realign the intersection and add a high friction surface treatment to the intersection, as well as increase visibility of the traffic signal. However, since Highway Safety Improvement grants are awarded based off of severity of crashes, and since all the crashes at this intersection were property damage only because of the successful implementation of the planners, we were unsuccessful in multiple attempts to secure grant funds to correct that underlying issue. However, in 2017, we were able to secure a Caltrans planning grant to study the overall corridor and develop a complete streets plan. The goals of the complete streets plan development, which were identified based on the years of resident concerns and outreach, included improving traffic safety and non-motorized facilities, reducing the number of crashes along the corridor, reducing vehicle speeds and conflict points, improving walking and biking facilities, as well as access from across the corridor, and then to reduce cut-through travel. And for the purposes of this study, we considered cut-through as a vehicle that neither started nor stopped within city limits. And lastly, we had a goal that the plan be data-driven with community buy-in. We wanted to develop a concept that listened to the needs of local residents, was creative and innovative, and was also developed to be implementable, aligning with current grant funding availability. We didn't want to create a plan that couldn't be funded and would just sit on a shelf. So we knew we needed data to back up any preferred concept on the corridor, so we hired Fair & Peers to help us develop the plan. Fair & Peers helped the city review the design and operations of the intersections and traffic signals, specifically at Old Auburn and Fair Oaks, the location of the planter boxes that I showed on the previous slide, where a great deal of time went into the review of the original intersection. As part of the analysis, we purchased big data to determine the amount of cut-through travel along the roadway. And for those that may not be familiar, big data is a term used to categorize large sets of data. For this project, we obtained GPS cell phone data of users along the roadway. All personal information is removed, but we are able to see general locations of where trips started and ended that also pass through various points along the corridor. These pie charts on the screen now tell us about the types of trips on the project corridor at that intersection with the planter boxes. The bright blue portion of the pie represents the cut-through traffic, which are the trips that neither start nor stop within the city of Citrus Heights. And what this data analysis showed us was that between 21 and 25%, or essentially 1 in every 4 or 5 cars during the peak periods, is using this roadway strictly as cut through to and from other jurisdictions. And after looking at the data and reviewing the crash reports and the information that we received from the public, we did develop a preferred alternative, which was a road diet concept, removing one westbound through lane and converting it into a buffered bike lane or a separated class 4 multi-use path. However, we knew that a lane removal on a collector street would be controversial. So luckily, the plan development also included a robust community engagement effort. In an effort to provoke participation, support, innovation, city staff undertook a massive effort to change the look and feel of community engagement compared to any previous projects that we had done. We hosted 9 community engagement events and opportunities for members of the public to provide input on experiences, concepts, and roadway treatments, one of which was a 9-day demonstration project and community safety fair. The demonstration project converted one westbound vehicular travel lane into a Class 4 multi-use path. We also used the demonstration project as an opportunity to collect additional data, including hourly vehicle counts, vehicle speed data, as well as to conduct general traffic observations. Our police department here in Citrus Heights has a UAS program, or an unmanned aircraft system program, which I know more, and perhaps you do too, as a drone program. We collaborated with the police department to collect video during key times of our demonstration project. So on the screen now is some highlights from that drone footage. As I previously mentioned, we converted one westbound lane into a temporary two-way separated bike path, which you can now see on the left side of the roadway in the video. This also meant reducing one of the left turn lanes at that T intersection we previously discussed. So instead of dual left turn lanes, we had just a single left and converted the outside lane into a right turn only lane. And you'll see that now as we're approaching the intersection, you'll see just a left turn and the separated right turn. Citrus Heights is a contract city, meaning we don't have city maintenance staff to perform any signing or striping changes in-house. So we used our on-call striping and signing contractors to perform the temporary installations. That was a bit of a challenge, coordinating schedules, working with multiple contractors, ensuring both could implement and remove on the same day, as well as aligning all of that with our outreach schedule. The demonstration project was in place for 9 days, during which time we collected all the traffic data and traffic observations, looking to help aid in any decision-making process for the plan development. And with this, we were actually able to debunk some public theories brought up during the initial concept review. Some items brought up from the public before we implemented the demonstration was that traffic was going to back up for miles, or there would be a significant cut through on adjacent residential roadways. To collect the data, we worked with our on-call data collection firm. We used the drone footage to see how long queues were at adjacent intersections. We also used the drone footage to measure side street delay at intersections that were of high concern to neighborhoods. We set everything up on a Friday, left it in for a full week, and then removed it and restored it back the following Monday. We used temporary striping tape and glue down delineators. All of the signs were installed on type 2 barricades, and city staff was responsible for checking the delineators and barricades each morning just to make sure everything was in the correct place. In addition to collecting data, we also used the demonstration project as an outreach tool, which resulted in significantly higher levels of engagement when compared to traditional outreach methods. We were able to engage 27,000 vehicle drivers a day that may have otherwise not experienced or had input or even known about the project. To kick off the demonstration project, we also held a community safety fair. This was an in-person event used to further increase engagement, share concept level plans, solicit feedback, answer questions, as well as provide bicycle and pedestrian safety information to the public. The safety fair had huge local participation from stakeholders and various project partners. The school district brought a fleet of bicycles for kids to ride on the temporary bike path, as well as painted a course within a local parking lot to teach rules of the road to younger participants. We had SAC Regional Transit, our local transit agency, with information on local routes, as well as a bus to tour promoting their then new on-demand microtransit services. The city provided free bicycle helmets to kids, and we had representatives from Dignity Health fit the helmets on the kids, as well as provide free pedestrian safety class. Our local police department had a bicycle officer and a canine officer present to meet and greet, as well as ride with the kids on the temporary bike path. And of course, our public works department was there with Farron Piers with the project information. During the event, we heard from parents that wouldn't normally let their kids ride to school, especially on collector roadways with higher volume and higher speeds, that during the demonstration project, they really felt comfortable doing so. And they cited the reason why they did feel that comfort was the vertical elements and the separation from traffic. After the demonstration project concluded, we analyzed the traffic data that was collected. And while the project was in place, we found an approximate 10% decrease in the number of cars during that PM peak period on the project corridor. but we did not see that same 10% increase on adjacent roadways in this city. So what this is telling us is that those using this roadway as a cut through likely found alternate routes outside of the city to get to their destinations. Now coming back to the crashes into the planner box, we use the implementation of the demonstration project also as an opportune time to implement some permanent changes to the eastbound and northbound approaches at the intersection. The temporary removal of the one westbound receiving lane required us already to change to a left turn and a right turn on the northbound approach. So we ended up just simply leaving this in place and didn't remove it at the end of the demonstration. We also added some flashing speed warning signs to alert drivers as they approach the intersection and additional signage on the north side of the road. We realigned the eastbound approach to create wider allowable radius for the turns. And all of these are still in place today. And I'm happy to report that since we've implemented these changes almost 2 years now, that we've not had a single crash into those planter boxes. In fact, even with this record-breaking storm over the weekend, we didn't have any run off the road. So I think it's time to change that sign. City 1, wall 0 can reset the counter. The preferred road diet concept that came out of the data analysis and concept review was somewhat controversial. Citrus Heights has a large population of residents who are resistant to change, especially when that change is a reduction in vehicle lanes for bicycle and pedestrian improvements. This project allowed us to engage a significantly larger number of people than we'd ever done before. This gave our elected officials and decision makers more comfort and information when asked to formally decide how to move forward. The high levels of engagement resulted in regional recognition, including an article by our local council of governments, several news reports, and is probably likely why I was asked to speak to you today. Beyond providing info to our elected officials, it allowed residents and members of the public to see the true impacts. We often heard those exaggerated expectations before the demonstration project went in, and after the demonstration project and during, allowed everyone, staff, public, elected officials to see what those real impacts would be and to debunk some of those exaggerated thoughts. It also provided an opportunity for staff to collect data, which resulted in adjustments and modifications to the original concept design. And it introduced the public to new types of non-motorized facilities. Of those 27,000 vehicles that passed through it each day, I would guess that the majority probably had not previously seen a two-way separated bike path or a demonstration project. Overall, the demonstration project, including the data collection, material costs, temporary signing and striping install and removal, cost the city approximately $25,000, a portion of which was covered with some of that Caltrans planning grant that we received in 2017. Ultimately, this led to the city securing over $2 million in the last round of ATP grant funds for the first half of the project. After the demonstration project ended, we finalized the plan development, including the feedback from residents, data collection, and the city council formally adopted the complete streets plan and directed staff to start seeking funds for design and construction. On the right of the screen now, you can see some of the renderings of the corridor will look like in the near future. As I just mentioned, we received about $2.1 million from Cycle 5 of ATP for the design, environmental, and right-of-way acquisition portion for the first half of the project. We believe that one of the reasons why we were able to score high enough to secure ATP funds is because of the demonstration project and the significant public engagement. We're just now getting started on this, hoping to start the preliminary engineering just after the new year, with construction anticipated to commence in the 25-26 fiscal year. So just to recap some of the key takeaways that we learned during this process is that the demonstration project was a great way to engage the public. It increased overall project awareness, both positive and negative. It allowed our decision makers additional info and comfort when deciding to move forward with this significant change. And although $25,000 is a lot of money, it is relatively low cost investment for a future $2 million grant with hopefully more grant funds to follow. It garnered regional recognition, adding to the already high engagement levels. And it significantly enhanced our ATP grant application, which we believe was the reason why it was successful in receiving funding. This concludes my presentation. I'd like to just say thank you to everyone for joining us today, and thank you to my fellow panelists, Russell and Hannah. My contact information is on the screen. Please feel free to email me with any questions today, a week from now, or whenever they may come up. But now I'd like to turn it back over to Emily for the Q&A session.
Hello, thank you. Thank you all for those incredible presentations. I think they are excellent examples of demonstration projects and really all that they can achieve. My name is Emily Abrahams, and I am a project manager from the Active Transportation Resource Center at Caltrans, and I'll moderate the Q&A session. Hopefully we can get through a few questions in our next 15 minutes. So we're looking good on time. All right, so the first question here is for Hannah. And it is, does the Go Human program help underfunded cities and counties achieve federal and state funding for these things like crosswalks, sidewalks, street lighting, and walkways?
Yeah, so thank you so much for that question. And I'd also like to invite the other panelists to speak to it too. I think they'd have some great perspectives. But yeah, I think a really key goal of doing some of these demonstration projects and some of the educational programming through our Go Human program is to really, bolster grant applications when you're applying for construction funds, design funds, whatever that might be. And it's really, you can think of it kind of along that sort of cycle of a project, right? And so, doing community engagement to really, invite folks to, come out and experience something and share their feedback. And that can really strengthen grant applications. And so, we've seen that in some of the projects that we've supported, where, some of the data that we gather for the demonstration project, you can include that into a grant application. And it really just makes it that much stronger and more competitive, right? Because we know how competitive, especially the ATP program has become. So getting something that can really set yourself apart, can really help strengthen your application.
Great, thanks. Does any of the other panelists want to chime in on this? All right, thank you. And then the next question is, I guess, for everyone as well, but do you typically do these demonstration projects with ATP funding, as you mentioned in the Active Transportation Program, or before applying and use it for the application? So I'll pass it to all panelists who maybe have experienced this.
Sure. Coming from the local agency side, we typically would perform the demonstration project during the planning phase of the project prior to applying for the ATP grant applications. It has been challenging to identify those local funding sources, and I'm sure many of our local agencies online can relate to, but it is a small investment to make in order to get those big ATP funds.
Yeah. And oh, go ahead, Hannah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Emily.
I was just going to add, from an ATP non-infrastructure manager perspective, there is funding in the Active Transportation Program specifically for these projects as a non-infrastructure project.
Yeah, and I'll just add really quick from the regional agency perspective, we try to fund some of these projects, like I said, to kind of strengthen those applications. And, as Emily mentioned, like, you can do them as part of your ATP funding, but it's really great to kind of do that sort of as, as you're planning the project and as you're looking to apply for more permanent construction funds.
Great. So this next question, it's for Hannah and also for Russell, but maybe Leslie can chime in as well. Could you speak to any MUTCD challenges with the innovative crosswalk art or innovative traffic circle art from the demonstrations?
I'll go first. So again, from the community advocate perspective, this is we were able to do a really cool artwork. We got a local artist to do spray chalk. We bought a whole bunch of tempera, thinking that they would go with that. But the city said, no, it needs to wash out easily. And for anyone taking notes, the spray chalk doesn't come out very easily, even with street sweepers. So for what that's worth. But this next time around, when the city invited us to do some more artwork, they got cold feet. They said it had to be earth tones only, which just doesn't. brown, really brown and tan. So I understand that they do need to worry about those sorts of national standards. What we try to do from our perspective is to keep bringing up at council meetings and letting staff know, kind of these alternative NACDO guidelines. When the MUTCD went under review, it received a lot of comments from a lot of different agencies saying, no, these are not good enough. These are entrenching us in our audio-oriented state. And so just keeping the awareness alive that these are not undisputed standards, that there are other voices in the field that are legitimate, and we should be we should be trying to push the envelope a little bit and not just fall over at the sound of MUTCD.
Yeah, and I think because the projects are really temporary in nature, right? They're a weekend up to a week to 1 month. That really gives us a lot of flexibility. And they're typically within the city's right of way. So their public works, their city engineer can really sign off and approve that project on a very temporary basis. And you can kind of test out sort of how those things are operating, right? And then kind of modify from there if you need to change something to meet compliance. Some of the stencils that we have within our Go Human Kit of Parts, they are MUTCD compliant. So for instance, like if a Shero for a bike lane, some of the bike lane markings. I think for like longer and more permanent projects, you can sometimes need design exceptions. But you can kind of start on that when you're sort of doing this temporary project and sort of move toward that. I think especially when it's on, state DOT right of way, that can be somewhat challenging. So if you kind of start with, something temporary and kind of move towards something permanent, where you would need a design exception, it kind of gives you the flexibility to do that.
Great, thank you. All right, another question in here is about compensation to community members who participated. How were you able to do that?
So I'm happy to speak on that one. So yeah, I think that's a really important piece. And so we often try to budget as part of our project, really just including a line item for community-based organizations, almost as kind of like a sort of a direct cost, almost like a vendor, right? And so you can think of it as, someone who would be providing, traffic management services or other engagement services. These are folks providing their expertise on the project. So building it into the project budget. And if you can't do that, one thing that we've explored at an agency level is micro purchases. So these are like very small, kind of under $10,000, kind of sort of separate costs outside of the project, where, we would maybe purchase things that weren't allowed under a certain grant, or we would, cover the cost of a community member's time if they're not necessarily affiliated with an organization. And so having some of that flexibility to explore ways to compensate folks, that's something that we're really, kind of constantly working with. It's kind of constantly evolving, but it's really kind of a big priority that we're trying to sort of bake into our programs.
And in my project, we tried to take wherever we could. We tried to inject that money back into the local economy. So we had an artist that we got to use, and we were very happy to be able to pay her, a couple freelance graphic designers that we could pay, all the outreach material that gets expensive. We tried to use local businesses. So that was kind of cool to just circulate it back into Costa Mesa, especially right around there.
Great. And I'll jump down to another question, and this one may be for Leslie, since you mentioned big data in your presentation. So the question is, can you expand more on purchasing and using big data?
Sure. So I think there's a couple different companies, but we used Streetlight, and the way that it works is you kind of specify to them different parameters that you're looking at, and it's set based on the number and location of data sources that you're looking for. And you basically just get a large swath of data. And luckily we had Fair and Peers able to analyze all that data, and they were able to tell us which census block groups trips were starting and ending, and that passed along key points on the corridor. I mentioned during my presentation just the one intersection, but we actually looked at several key locations on the corridor, and we could see how that cut through traffic changed along the entirety of the length of the roadway. And it really helped us in determining what types of facilities we wanted to implement. We've also used it on other projects throughout the city. We're just really starting to scratch the surface, but it's a really great resource for local agencies to get a more in-depth look at the users on the roadway.
All right. And then another question here about surveys. So on surveys, do you provide opportunities for people to give input that maybe you didn't specifically request? And then along those same lines, we did receive another question on kind of how do you turn the comments you do receive from surveys into data that you can share out?
I can speak to that a little bit. I think, maybe sometimes we might not think of all the questions to ask, right? So I think that can often be like the most interesting feedback. And so, at kind of a very basic level, like we always have sort of like an other category, right? Where people can kind of write in something that, we didn't think about that they're really interested in addressing. And then also at our sort of physical events, we try to have some sort of board or something where folks can kind of write down comments at each infrastructure treatment. So if we're showcasing a high visibility crosswalk, we'd have like a little board set up and people can write comments on it. And I think, you hit on one of the big challenges there is actually turning that into sort of actionable data. I think, that's kind of where I think it goes back to some of those grant applications too. We try to produce final reports for each of our projects that capture, all of the comments that we received, all of the data. We try to summarize that. The qualitative data is really difficult again, but I think you can even try to like code that, right? So you can have something a little bit more quantitative that folks often like to see on grant applications. But sometimes it really helps to tell that bigger story too, some of that qualitative information, and can really kind of help you build out the case for why your project is important and why the community is really, asking for something like that.
Yeah, if we have time, we just designed a survey for some traffic circles that the city's doing, and we kept it short. It's like 7 or 8 questions, so multiple choice. But after each of those, we have a open form. What are your thoughts on this question? Do you have anything else to add? So you're not stuck, choosing between two evils, right? So, and then when we did this Reimagine 19th project, the big one I was talking about, the qualitative, just open-ended questions were some of the most interesting and useful bits of information that we got from the community and people. And like Hannah said, we were able to code some of that, tag it, and turn it into something you could display visually. But also in our final report, we were able to summarize those, find trends, and just kind of write paragraphs summarizing the trends in those answers. But also in the appendix, just list them out. You can always do that too. And that's useful, maybe not for applying for grants, but it's useful to bring to the city council or to show in an open letter to share with the community, to get everybody thinking about these things and putting it right in front of them so they can't miss it.
All right, anything else? Okay, I think we are out of time now. I did want to thank our panelists for their presentations today. There is another question comment in the box here about just how inspirational these projects are. All these takeaways, you know, doing these demonstration projects really get the community involved and show the community what could be possible, get their feedback. So it's really a great way to, you know, demonstrate what a potential improvement could look like. So I just wanted to reiterate that to all of you. It's very inspirational to see your projects and the success of them, and we hope many more will happen. And with that, we will end our session for today. So thank you all for attending. Thank you again to our panelists, and our next session will begin at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.